Thank you for joining us. You're listening to the Write Project podcast and radio program. This is a show about writing and modern Newfoundland author culture. This program is produced and recorded at CHMR FM 93.5 FM in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, and is aired on other great stations in the province and elsewhere in the country. It can also be heard online at www.chmr.ca. I'm your host, Matthew LeDrew, author of the Coral Beach Case Files series and founder at Engine Book. Let's see what we have today. Well, we are on a very special episode of the Write Project podcast. I think I say that every time. If this was like the TV show Blossom, every episode would be the very special episode. But we're on today with Mike Hickey, who is the genius mind behind a lot of cool genre horror things in this province. He's been a part of the Nightmare on Water Street contest for the last 2 years with Wannell, a bunch of other stuff, but we're here to talk to him today about Terror Nova, which is a really exciting anthology book of short stories that Mike is producing from Engine Books, coming out this fall. Thanks for coming on, Mike.
Thanks so much for having me. It's that was very flattering and very misleading to people.
I know, right? Yeah, it's the bait and switch where it's like in any good horror story. You know what I mean? Yeah. You got to think that the killer's a nice guy.
Yeah, it's I appreciate everything you said. It's weird, but no, I'm really excited about Terra Nova, especially. It's been something I've been wanting to do for a long time now, and it just kind of worked out through, us collaborating on a couple different things. Obviously, we've worked on like Nightmare on George Street, like you said, this past year a little bit more closely than we had previously and stuff. So it's kind of exciting to have it all come together and be a thing.
It is, absolutely. So tell me about Terror Nova. I mean, I already know about it, and I've been talking to Kelly Power about it. She's one of the announced authors already. But what's the conceit? Like, tell me about the collection, or what the book is going to be.
It's going to be very good. It's really interesting, because what we decided to do was make an anthology of Newfoundland-inspired horror and make it a little bit different than when you guys do something like Chillers from the Rock or other things like that. And basically what it all boiled down to was making it that, one, there were less authors involved, so they kind of had a little bit more real estate within the book to work with.
Yep.
You could tell longer stories, because a lot of times when you're writing horror, and it's something I found from doing like a couple flash contests and a couple things like that, and I've done a lot of like 5-minute horror challenges and different things like that. Like, when you're working with horror as a short medium, sometimes it's difficult because it takes some time to build up suspense and tension. And
yeah.
So we want to give people a little bit more wiggle room in that regard. So we did less authors. And the only thing that we really held them to was that it had to be inspired in some way by Newfoundland. It didn't necessarily have to be set in Newfoundland. It didn't have to be by a Newfoundland author, but it had to have some connection here in some way, whether that be the lore, whether it be the landscape, whether it, it had to have some connection to Newfoundland, and that's kind of all we wanted. And it could be as tangential as you wanted it to be. But that was what it boiled down to. And we've gotten back, I think I've read 10 of the stories so far of the 11 authors. Yep. And we're still waiting on one, and not including myself. And it's been really good. And
they are amazing. Sure, I've read I think 9 of the what will be total 11, and they are amazing.
Yeah, I've read 10 of them now, and I finished the last one this morning actually, and I'm just blown away by. We asked these people. You and I kind of collaborated on a list that we wanted to do as an ask to people.
And I should point out, like, this isn't like the From the Rocks where we took in like open submissions. Like, we curated and looked for the best horror authors in the province or related to the province.
Yeah, we found we kind of split it up and said, okay, we're going to break this up and we're going to take half each kind of thing.
Yep.
And
went through our Rolodexes and filled it up half with yours, half with mine.
Yeah, and I found I went to friends and people that I knew who I knew from film and from other kinds of writing who weren't kind of part of the engine stable of artists, and I kind of went outside that and found I found 5 people who I thought could tell really great horror stories. And you went to the engine team and you found 6 people who could tell really great horror stories, and what we've gotten back have been 11 really great horror stories.
Which
And
is
then
funny, because we started out both saying that we would get 4 each.
yeah,
So,
we went to A, and then you know what, and there's been because you kind of did 6 on engine side and we did 6 including me on the non-engine side, and yeah, we had planned to do 8.
you're not on the engine side now.
Well, I am now, but at the time,
Sure.
at the time that you got 6, I got 5 plus me, and that was kind of the way it worked. And you would have probably done 5 plus you if you had if you had decided to do it. But
Yeah.
it just became this thing where we got some really great stories, and I've been working on the wrapper for all that, and that's the thing that kind of seems to confuse people is what I'm actually doing, because a lot
You
of
are
times,
the, what we would call in literary circles, working on the framing narrative.
yeah, and it's weird because not a lot of it's very common in horror film and horror television to use this kind of narrative framing thing,
Yep.
but it doesn't seem to happen as much in this sort of anthology collection, and people seem kind of confused by what it is, because a lot of times, as you know, and as I'm sure listeners know, when it comes down to an anthology, the person who's kind of in my role is usually an editor who compiles it, but that's not really the case here. You and I are both kind of working on that to some degree. You much more into the editing side of it than I am.
Yeah, that's
I'm gonna give you some notes and be like, I think this. Tell people that in a better way.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm working on a framing narrative that kind of goes around all these stories and weaves in and out of them, and it's kind of fun. I don't know. Am I cool to kind of tell people what the?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
of course.
So the idea is that Terror Nova is a ghost tour. Well, not ghost per se, but a few years ago I was in Ireland with my now wife, and we did the Ghost Bus Tour, where you got on this big double-decker bus, and you went around Dublin, and they told you Dublin ghost stories. And it was really cool, and it was super fun. And that's kind of what we decided to set up as the framing device for this. So it's about a group of people who get on this double-decker bus and get taken all over Newfoundland, being told stories inspired by different parts of Newfoundland. So, you may have a story that's set specifically in a town or a place. You may have a story that kind of is a little bit more open in terms of that sort of thing, but they all kind of get woven in and told as part of this tour over the course of a night. And there's a tour guide who's a very fun character that I've been playing around with, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think people are going to enjoy it. I just hope that the stuff I'm writing can live up to what everybody else is, because the rest of the stuff we've been getting is so good.
I think it is. From what I've read of your stuff, I think it is. I don't think you have anything to worry about. What's funny is I actually don't remember, and if you do, you can go ahead and correct me, or if it was like just something we both came to at the same time, but I don't remember who came up with the idea of the framing device basically being you, or rather the character, the persona that you've taken on in public appearances, like on the Nightmare on Water Street
thing. I've taken on in public appearances. It was a Halloween costume I wore 2 years in a row.
Yeah, but you actually bring a personality to it.
Totally you. You were the one that, like, when I started talking about the idea, because I was the one that came up with the idea of doing it as like this bus tour, and kind of going all over the place. And you were the one that wanted that character, which is again just kind of this like open Halloween costume that I've done for a couple years because it's fun and I like it. And but it's kind of, you always saw it as this bigger character than I ever did, and you wanted it to be the
well, to me that's the brand. Like, to me it's like you are like the Crypt Keeper. Like, we haven't had one of those in a really long time, like a new addition to that thing. To me, this is the selling point.
There's some great horror hosts out there that are still going strong, and new ones they're kind of trying to come forward.
And you're going to be the new one. It's going to be spectacular.
I think that this character, who now is named Simon, for the sake of the book, I think there's going to be some fun stuff with that, and I'd love to really play around with it because, as you know, and I don't know if the listeners know, but I've been generally kind of a film guy for the bulk of the last while, and so I definitely see things moving into that medium, hopefully at some point.
I would very much like that. Yep.
Yeah, and so I mean that character could play there for sure, but for now it was just you. It was you that was adamant to make sure that character, who at the time was nothing, it was just a collection of crap that I had around the house that I put on as a Halloween costume.
Yeah, no, that's.
It was just a bunch of crap I had laying around the house.
Yeah,
and I put it all on, and that was my Halloween costume for a couple of years when I was doing that event, because it seemed like a fun kind of ringmaster look that would kind of work as a master of ceremonies.
But like the fun for me is that, well, like you were saying about getting this into other mediums, I don't know if we've talked about it, I believe we have, but I'm absolutely going to bug you to do the audiobook of this when this is done. Yeah. And just the idea of like, when we go out to book launches or events, when all this like isolation junk is over, the idea of the character from the book, even if it's just you in a costume and you don't see it as a character, the idea of that guy being there at the launches, being there at the signing, and having this like playful meta narrative in with it of that character reading the books, even if it's credited as you know what I mean? It's all one and the same. That's very appealing to me, and I think that's a really cool hook that like it kind of blurs the line. Like, you'll be here with like just like you look in the book and saying like, hey, buy this book of short stories. Like in the sequel, because God knows it's gotten enough traction that I'm really excited already for like Terra Nova 2. Like in the sequel, it shouldn't be a bus tour, it should be a book tour, and he should be on tour with the first Terra Nova book.
That's yeah, I like it. It could work. It's something where I'm sure you understand too. It's like, I want to do. I think there's some events that it'll be really fun to do that. I think there's some other events where I don't necessarily want to do that, but I think it'll be fun.
Oh yeah. You'll show up as the NL Book Awards, like with like ghost makeup on and with your Joker laugh.
Listen to you talk about awards. I think it'll be fun to have it at some events and not at others. And like our plan is to launch it around the fall. And so definitely there's going to be some costumed things and fun events that way and all kinds of stuff. And
we should do a costume contest where like the winner like wins a copy or something like that.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of fun things like that. And even, we released the artwork last week and it's gotten such a great response already. And all that stuff is just, it's going really well. And it's really exciting that people seem to be interested in this and seem pumped. And it's cool because, like Newfoundland has a really great horror scene. And it's weird because people don't think about it, but it does. Before the HorrorCon even, which Carl Penny and the guys, the collective out in Carbonear have been putting together for the last couple of years, and it's moving into St. John's this year. Hopefully everything holds up for that and it's able to happen. But, like even before that, you were starting to see it come together more with the guys like Grindmind, with the stuff that I've been doing. I mean, the Haunted Hype going on for years with Engine, with all these different, you're seeing it. Obviously, Sci-Fi and The Rock was very focused on the sci-fi aspect of things, but anybody in the genre scope kind of gravitated over there, and so you'd see horror stuff happen even at Sci-Fi, and there was always a huge community there that was kind of quiet, and people didn't really. It wasn't as open in terms of as it is now. One of our authors, who I think is the next one probably to be named, I think, he and I went to college together, and we didn't really, this wasn't something we were really that like openly talking about and hanging out and watching horror movies all the time. Even though, like, when you think about it now, you assume that we were, but not really. Just because at the time it wasn't really what we were, projecting the same way, because it wasn't something. It was just like kind of a hobby that people were. It wasn't as much as of who they are as it seems to be now. It seems people are way more open about their fandom that way.
That's fair. That's fair. I find that, like, I don't know, like, to me, watching horror and horror and comedy are very solitary things. Like, I can't imagine sitting down and enjoying a horror movie with someone else, because part of the appeal for me is being alone in the house and then hearing, like, a creak as the house settles or something like that and going, oh my god. Oh my god.
Yeah, I get you. I mean, look, I really enjoyed the other night. Me and my wife were on like a Facebook chat with some friends watching the autopsy of Jane Doe, and that was great.
Yeah, that's the one with Brian Cox, right?
Yeah,
that is an amazing movie.
It's so good, and just like us sitting in the house, and it was kind of windy out, and it was it was nice. It was great. I get what you're saying about that kind of solitary thing, but yeah, it's just there's something about horror that it can be kind of a solitary thing to watch, and for sure, because you can get a little bit creeped out a little bit easier if you're alone, but at the same time, it can be a real communal thing where you enjoy the same crappy movies and you joke about them and you whatever, and there's definitely a part of it that's communal, and I think we're seeing more and more of that locally, where it's kind of coming out more, and people are wearing, like I said, they're wearing their fandom a little bit more than they were even 10 years ago. Sci-fi really brought out us, really brought sci-fi fans out, and you realize just how big that community was locally, and I think it started to kind of bleed off into the other genres, in the sense that, like, you're seeing more of a fantasy community, people that are into that. You're seeing more horror, and I think it's all coming together, and I think that something like Terra Nova, that is a collection this way, is a really kind of fun thing, because it is so tied into Newfoundland, but hopefully we're also writing stories that will appeal to people who aren't here.
Yeah, no, I think this is actually going to have pretty broad appeal.
I think that the fact that it's not just like local, it's not necessarily local ghost stories, but it's the stuff that you kind of imagine when you're somewhere, there's something fun to that to me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think this is going to be a really, really fun collection. We're going to have some fun. I don't know who will be announced by the time this airs, but like I said, there's 11 in total, 12 if you include you, which is, it's going to be like a meaty collection. It's going to be good. It's got some really cool stuff in it. Great for like
I'm really excited. Like the stuff, like I said, I've read all but one of, not counting mine obviously, but I've read all but one of the stories, and they're all fantastic, and I'm really excited for other people to kind of share in them, and hopefully what I'm working on kind of does all the other stories justice. And
you keep saying that. It's perfectly fine. You're gonna do great.
Well, I'm just reading everything, and I'm really intimidated by how good everybody's stuff is.
Yeah, I hear you. Which is really funny, because I know for a fact that at least half of the authors were intimidated the other way, and were going, like, sending it to me and being like, is this good enough? You can tell me. I won't be offended if you say I can't be in the collection.
Well, that's silly of them.
That is very, very silly of them. Okay, so, if everything goes according to plan, and we're not still, like, limited to gatherings and stuff like that around fall, then we'll expect a big, like, gathering in the fall for Terra Nova, which will be loads of fun, and everyone listening should show up. We'll be talking to Mike before then again, like, leading up to it on the show here. But, and even if we can't have a big launch then, even if we are still doing that, I know over at Engine at least, I don't know what the other publishers are doing, but we're planning on having a large launch that is just like a shared launch for everything that couldn't have a launch during this kind of thing.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so basically we've got a plan in place either way. We've been planning like a Halloween style thing for this, but if the worst happens and we get pushed past the desired time frame when you'd want a book like this out, we'll still have a party and we'll still dress up like it's Halloween. We'll have Halloween in December or whenever we're allowed to get out. It'll be fine.
Well, listen, Halloween is it's on a Saturday this year, and it's on a full moon.
Wow.
And I swear to God, if like Halloween full moon, and it's also daylight savings time, so it's 2 hours longer.
Wow.
So if the extra hours of Halloween on a full moon Saturday gets canceled, I'm gonna be so mad at everybody.
You're gonna riot.
And also, like, I have a book coming out this Halloween, so I want to be able to enjoy the entire month of October in all of its spooky goodness with my, supporting my book. And yeah, so
who I can reveal now. Don't know how many authors we have in, but I can reveal who's not in the book. Because I thought of it when I said Halloween in December. The one person not in the book is Amanda Labonte, author of the Call of the Sea and Supernatural Causes books. Even though she writes some werewolf and vampire stuff, she could not be in Terra Nova. I would have asked her, honestly, but I know she would have said no. And the reason I know that is because she once she asked me what my favorite movie growing up was, and I said Nightmare Before Christmas. To which she said, and I'm not kidding, I couldn't watch that. I can't watch horror movies.
What?
Yeah, yes. That's Nightmare Before Christmas is too scary for Miss Labonte.
Well, now.
Oh my.
But I mean, there's some great Christmas horror too. But I want this to have a more Halloween vibe. But I mean, I think it's something that you'll be able to enjoy regardless of the time of year, hopefully. Because if you're like me, it's Halloween every day. But specifically also on October 31st. So don't mess this up, everybody. I want to enjoy this Halloween. Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. If you could tell your younger writing self any one thing, what would it be?
Wow. To keep doing it, I went a long time where I kind of stopped for a bit. I was always somebody when I was a kid who was really into writing and wrote a lot, and I won a couple contests and a couple other things. But then for some reason, I kind of gave it up for a long time, and it took me a while to find my way back to it, and I did through film for a bit. But getting back to writing, I guess prose, it's something that I wish I hadn't stepped away from it for a bit, and that would be what I would say is not to stop at any point and just keep writing and write all kinds of things.
What is the best money that you ever spent on your writing career, on being a writer?
I don't know. I would actually. Hopefully this will roll forward, but I actually just became a member of the Horror Writers Association.
Oh, okay.
It's something I kind of, had looked at for a bit and knew about, and talked to somebody there and discovered that through work I had done on Fright Hype and some other things, I qualified as a, kind of professional affiliate writer under their mandate. And so I became a member of that just like last week. And so with the book coming out and with some other things I'm working on and other projects, I think that might be hopefully it, because hopefully it'll help push this book forward a little bit through the networking and other opportunities that it presents. And so I'm gonna answer on behalf of future Mike and assume that that works out and that the opportunities afforded to me by now being a member of the Horror Writers Association pays off in a big way.
Excellent. Okay, great. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I might have to look into that. I am not a member of that. And there's a Crime Writers Association too. And I am just, from my days of being an indie, I've still got a bit of that, anti-authority, anti-community, anti-everything, streak in the back of my head. It took me so long to join Wannell, and now I'm Wannell's, biggest advocate, and won, the Volunteer of the Year thing last year. And there's a little part of me, there's a little anarchist that's teenage Matt in the back of my head going, "You sold out, man."
You sold out because you're part of the Writers Alliance.
Yeah.
Like that's the yeah. No, but it's I think it's pretty cool. I just signed up the other day. I was able to prove, that I got paid for stuff that made me a professional writer. And yeah, it's like, it's $70 a year or something like that. It was like $70 US, but it was also, there's a bunch of networking stuff. There's a bunch of mentorship within it. There's, being included in lists and being eligible for awards and different stuff like that it kind of gives you, that I was just like, you know what, for this year where I have the first book coming out, I'll go for it and see. But yeah, I just, said I'd go for it and give it a go, and we'll see how it works over the next while and if it's worth renewing and maintaining status in or whatever. But for now, I figured I might as well try.
You sold out, man. No.
Especially now, right? Like, the first year I didn't really participate in any way, like I had it, and up until the write-in started ahead of the second Nightmare, I hadn't really done anything with mono. But this year I went to the AGM, and you and I started talking about this book, so it's something that I'm trying to be more active with.
Yeah, we kind of met through doing that stuff, even though we also knew each other from the horror con and stuff. It was interesting.
And like I think we had met at Sci-Fi like years and years ago, and it turns out we have a bunch of mutual friends and all these things. But yeah, like it's through Wannel is how I, this last batch is how I kind of got to know you, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. What did you do with the first money that you made from writing horror stuff?
It's just that, yeah, I couldn't actually tell you what the first.
Because it was illegal?
No, because I'm trying to remember it. I'm trying to remember if the first money I got from writing was. I think I won $25 in the third grade for a story about trolls.
Okay. So I'm guessing you paid some bills.
And so I think I, obviously, yeah, like I paid some bills, bought some weed.
Yeah, of course.
What every 7-year-old does or whatever.
Yeah.
What every 7-year-old does with $25.
Yeah.
I think I probably laid it on the ground and laid it on the floor in the living room in $5 bills, like 5 fives, and just rolled around in it probably.
Yeah, that sounds about right. What was an early experience you had where you learned that language could have power?
I have talked myself into and out of several fights.
Okay. That is fair. I have done that too. That is interesting.
Things I've said and how I've said them have certainly gotten me into trouble and have also gotten me out of trouble. I wouldn't be able to pinpoint a precise time where that really snapped into focus, but it's definitely been a lesson I've learned from it. Yeah.
Okay. That's a good answer. That's a unique answer, and I like that. That's good. As a writer, what would you choose as your mascot or avatar or animal companion?
My dog Sam is very much my animal companion. She's actually having a nap under my desk right now, so I'd have to stick with Sam. Okay. She's just the best.
Sounds great. What kind of dog is she?
She is an Ewok. She is half Shih Tzu, half Pekingese.
I see.
So she very much literally looks like a little brown Ewok.
That's really cute. All right.
She is that.
Yep. Does she ever get together with her doggy friends and hoist you up on a chair and make you a golden idol?
No, because she doesn't have dog friends. She doesn't like other dogs.
Okay, that's fair. That's fine. I don't like other humans, so that works out.
Yeah, I get her completely. I completely understand where she's coming from. But in this case, it's because Sam is a very large, frightening, scary dog, and no one seems to understand that except her. And so she doesn't appreciate that other dogs don't appreciate how big and scary she is. And
I'm assuming she's not actually very big and scary.
No, she's like 12 pounds. But don't tell her that.
I feel that. I spend a fair amount of my youth being the shortest and the loudest in the room. I understand the little dog scenario. Napoleon complex.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for coming on, Mike Hickey, on the Right Project podcast. And again, we will look forward to your collection of short stories, your anthology, Terror Nova, coming out in the fall.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Anytime. All right, well, thanks for coming on again. For all of you, we'll be here again next week at 4:30 Newfoundland time or online at chmr.ca. Please tune in and we'll talk more about writing culture in Newfoundland.